podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
In the not-too-distant future, the world is straining under the burden of overpopulation and scarcity of resources. The government implements population control measures to avoid mass starvation, and fast improvements are made through genetically engineered foods. A great breakthrough in weather control gives hope in the fight against climate change for the first time in years, and for a moment, it looks like a sigh of relief is coming after years of turmoil and hardship. No one was prepared for the criminalist. The government became aware of this sinister cult after expeditions in the Amazon came across a mysterious tribe who still believe in a divine curse and cures. Worse than any terrorist group, the criminalists worshipped a world-destroying god. The god had been angered by mankind's creations through rituals, art and chemistry, and is now believed that this great evil is responsible for the destruction of Minoan civilization through the earth-shattering Santorini earthquake in 1470 BC. Government sent specialist teams over to reach the Bahagi tribe in the Amazon rainforest to find out about the cult that had garnered a lot of internet coverage. When they arrived, they were shocked at how committed the tribe was to this cult and the daily dancing rituals, and began investigating. After just a few days, they discovered an old cave with old writings on the wall believed to have been penned by the tribe's ancestors. A team of scientists and a historian discovered that the criminalist's ultimate plan was to cast a curse over the world and awaken the god. That evening, the tribe began a ritual, inviting the newcomers to join in. This was studied in detail by the historian, who confirmed that it was linked to the ancestors' sand aimed at awakening the god. The following day, a volcano suddenly erupted, killing almost 20 million people. This was followed shortly by a mega tsunami, destroying many towns and villages in China's eastern seaboard. As the weeks slowly went by, more and more strange disasters occurred. Governments got together in an emergency World Summit meeting to discuss how to stop this. The climate control system was failing to work, so research began to find the best scientists. Taking on the role of the criminalist and wreak terrible vengeance across the globe by causing natural disasters, are taking on the roles of workers, scientists and relocators to stop the criminals from causing destruction.
Okay. Does that game sound familiar to any of you? Well, probably not. That is the game Destruction by Jay Sears. Today we have on our guest Jay Sears. Thanks for joining us, Jay.
Yeah, many thanks for having me on, Blake. Much appreciated.
No problem. Okay, so so that game, is it in production, or is it something that's in the works, or what's going on with that game that you told us about, the story of?
Well, it's in the works at the moment, and the rulebook's been written. I'm going through quite a lot of playtesting phases at the moment, trying out some new ideas on the gameplay and the mechanics. I've had quite a lot of feedback on the gameplay, mostly positive, very little negative feedback whatsoever, and it's all been great hearing everyone's opinions on what they feel about the gameplay and also the complexity of it as well.
Oh, okay. What can you, let's see, so is this your first game that you're creating, or?
No, I've actually, the very first game I actually produced, which I never got released, was actually a bit of a rip-off of an old Trivial Pursuit game. So just to get my head into game design, that's the very first game I ever designed. And then after that, I did a rework of a political game that my father sent me, and that's originally got into board gaming design. And Destruction was actually the third game I designed, and in terms of where I wanted to go with mechanics and how they want to work in game design in general.
Okay. Let's see here. So, how did you study game design, or you just decided that you wanted to create games, or how did you get into it?
My dad sent me a board game he's working on. I had no interest in board game design back then, and he said, "Oh, I've designed this game." And he said he sent it to a few publishers, and no one was interested. So he said, "Oh, I'll send it up to you." So he sent this game up, and I took it out and had a look, and I thought, "Okay, this looks interesting." So I stuck it in Board Game Geek, and the feedback I got was quite negative. So it kind of got slated a bit, saying it was a bit like Monopoly in terms of the mechanics worked and the actual look of the board. So I took that as a kind of challenge to sort of design my own. So I reworked the whole entire game into a more strategic political game. And a local guy just down the road from me said, "Oh, look, I went and playing test. That looks really good." So yeah, that's how I began into the kind of design of games and kind of gained a bit of an interest. So I went away and studied game mechanics for 2 years, looking at different board games, looking at how the mechanics all worked, put a big list of the mechanics and what works well with what. And then I kind of then came up with the idea of destruction. Originally, I wanted to do a game like Plague, which is an app, quite an old app on iPhone, and I felt it was too much like Pandemic. Now, at the time when I was coming up with the ideas, I didn't realise Pandemic was around. Um, so I thought, well, I need to change the way the game works. I just don't want it to be like Pandemic. So I decided to make a game around natural disasters. I had a look, did a bit of research, and there was nothing out there. So that's when I started to design destruction and come up with the game mechanics, start pulling everything together.
Do you study on your own? You study different games on your own then, or?
Yeah, I went on Board Game Geek, had a look at all the games, looked at all the top games. I kind of looked at how to play videos. I was looking at how they worked, and I looked at a few different videos on YouTube about how game mechanics worked. I then did a huge list of kind of mechanics, looked at how they interacted. I then started to do a blog because all the research I did over the 2 years, I had a huge host of knowledge, and I felt that I had to just share that with other people. So I started writing a blog, um, and one of the most popular ones I did was how to write a rule book. Um, and I started a few discussions as well on Board Game Geek that got quite a lot of traction, and how to political correctly writing board game rule books and what to put in them, etc. In the first person, second person, etc. So I started doing more and more blogs around game design, looking at different aspects of the gaming industry. Did a lot of research, not just in the mechanics, but how to publish games, as well as the doing huge lists of manufacturers that manufactured board games and board gaming parks, etc. So yeah, I spent the whole 2 years just geekily studying and looking into board gaming in general and trying to get my head around the industry because I was new to it. I was really kind of in my infant stages of not having much of a clue where to go or where to find information. So the best plan of anything is to just go out and do it myself. And it's one of the ways I can learn to get my head around board game design and how to implement all the mechanics.
Cool beans. You talk about a blog. Is that blog still running, or how would people find it?
Yeah, I still do the blog. I originally was doing it monthly, and I changed it to quarterly because I just had quite a chaotic lifestyle, and I thought I just can't do this monthly. I just don't have the time. So I did that. I do it now. Do it quarterly, and I did a newsletter, which I do now and again. I send a newsletter out with some useful resources, so people can find it by going to my website, which is pixiegames.co.uk. So if you Google Pixie Games UK and it's Pixie with an XY, you'll come across the website and there's a link there to the blog. And you probably come up on the blogger as well. It'll probably come up Pixie Games UK. So yeah, you can find there's a lot of good useful resources and links to board game manufacturers, where to get game parts. Yeah, I did a lot of research on Kickstarters and how people were putting the Kickstarters together, and doing a bit of planning around that, because that's the route I was looking to go down. So yeah, there's a lot of great resources there that people can check out. And if anyone's got any suggestions, I always try and write the blogs around what others suggest and what input and research they want me to look into. So I make sure it's all factual, and I pull on information together and looking at other people's blogs as well, and looking at gaps in that and seeing what I can do a little bit different.
And is that you said is that PIXY Games UK? Is that what you said?
That's the one, yeah, that's right. So yeah, I'm going to be putting together a new website, so that's getting revamped, getting a bit more professional. So the blog links into it a bit better, and there's a direct link. It'll take you to Blogger. It's quite nice to set out as well. So and it's easy enough to find, and there's plenty of resources for people to check out.
Oh, okay, great. And then in researching to try to come up with different questions, because the other people I've interviewed have a game like live on Kickstarter or it was about to launch. But let's see, and just in game design in general, I'm not entirely sure what they meant, but they wondered if you have a top-down or a bottom-up approach to the game in creating.
I tend to do mine a bit different. My brain must work a little bit different from a lot of people, so I can quite easily come out of I usually tend to come out of a theme. So I'll have a theme, that's what I start with. And I get some ideas in games in most bizarre circumstances. So if my daughter's watching a children's program, I might think, oh, that'd be great for a game idea. And that's where my kind of theme comes from. And what I tend to do is I will write the rule book from scratch before doing any play testing. As I'm writing the rule book, I will play test it in my head, so I can work out mathematically every little move as I'm writing the rule book, and I can work out quite quickly what's going to work and not work. Now, a lot of people can't do that. They like to play test quite early or put together a prototype quite early. I tend to do it back to front, where I will write the whole entire rule book, and I will structure the whole rule book around my kind of thought processes and my thinking around how the game would play out. 9 times out of 10, when I actually do the play test and create the prototype after I've done the rule book, I tend to get it spot on. And what that means is the little tweaks of doing the rule book are quite minimal, because it actually works out quite well initially. And it makes the play testing a lot smoother, because I know exactly how the game's going to play, and I'm not having to go back and forward to the rulebook a lot, because I know it really well. I can play test it quite quickly, work out fairly early on whether it's going to work out or not, or whether there's some flaws in the mechanics, or whether some of the mechanics don't gel together. So I tend to start from a very different perspective from a lot of people. So I'll leave the prototype stage so a lot later than some of the other designers, which I know will tend to do a play test quite early on. I tend to do it quite late on, because I want to get the rule book as tight as possible. So when I'm doing the play testing, I find it a much smoother process in terms of getting the feedback and how I want the game to play. And usually I find there's very few flaws with me doing it that way, and that's just because that's the way my brain works. And I know a lot of people don't do it that way, but I prefer it doing it that way, which just can seem a little strange from a designer's perspective. But I just find it a lot simpler in my way of thinking.
Well, there you go. Yeah, when you said you watched like a children's program that your daughter was watching and thought of a game going with that, that reminded me of a podcast I recently discovered. I think it's called Dice Hard. It's by some creators over in Australia, and they take movies and they just go over and talk about how they would create them into a board game if the chance came up.
Yeah, absolutely, and you'd be surprised, where you get your ideas from. Usually, the way our brains work, the more active you are, your brain is processing much more information. So you'll find this is quite common feature amongst a lot of people. So if I'm doing housework, even just having a shower, doing a bit of exercising, I'll come up with 5 or 6 ideas, and I think, oh, that'd be good for a game idea. Oh, that'd be good to implement that in my game, etc. So that tends to be a common theme. And what I'll find is when I'm actually developing and designing a game, I will kind of have a few moments where I can't think of anything. I'll go away and think, right, I'll do a bit of exercise and I'll jump in the shower, and immediately I'm thinking about all these ideas, thinking, oh, that'd be good. Maybe I should try that, and maybe I should do that. So yeah, it's quite interesting with the psychology of how people's brains work. The more active it is, the more likelihood of your ideas coming out. So there's a game at the moment where I'm co-producing with someone who's had a couple of games out, and the game we're working on, the idea came from watching a kids program, which was quite strange. So that's one of I was it was actually the program I was watching was in between, and these kids were doing something. I won't give away too much, but they were doing something. I thought, oh, that'd be great to have a board game like that where they're constructing something. And I thought, right, that'd be great. And then the theme could be this. So and that's where the idea evolved from. And I thought, well, I could add this. Maybe it could work like this. So when I was speaking to John about going through all the kind of game ideas we had, that's the one he picked out, thinking that'd be a good one to work on together. And then so we decided to use that, and it's quite strange how the idea comes about in terms of from just a simple two kids on a TV program. Um, Constructing something can bring out all these ideas of of how a theme could work and how the mechanics could work. Because I know the mechanics quite well, I can just think quite quickly how the gameplay would work out. So yeah, that was quite an interesting concept of how that might come about. But yeah, that's one of the games we're working on.
Do you pick different mechanics for each game, or it just depends on the game, or do you have a favorite mechanic?
It depends on the game. So if I'm working on a kids game, so I've done a kids game, for example, called Apples and Mud, and that's been play tested a lot. And I've sent it off to Habba to see if they want to publish it. And that's got very simple mechanics in it. So obviously with children's games, you've got to be careful with the balance. But there's quite a few strategy points in it. So if I'm thinking about a children's game, I'll think, right, you've got the basic roll and move with rolling the dice, because kids love that. And although it's a very old school mechanic and it kind of gets slated a lot for kids, they love it. They love using dice. So then I'll think about, right, that's a bit boring, just rolling and moving, because a lot of kids games you see in supermarkets, they're not made by professional designers. They're made from a group of old people sitting in a room thinking, oh, that'd be great for a kids game. So I'll think, right, let's maybe add some cards in, because maybe cards are missing from a lot of kids games. So all right, so how do we incorporate the both? And then I'll think, right, so what mechanics within those elements can I add in? So it might be, right, maybe if I've got different lanes, you can chop and change lanes. Maybe we can pick up things as we go along, and you can use those resources for different things. And it's about thinking about, well, not making it too complex, but giving choice and options. What can we use those resources for? So that's kind of the process I go through. So that's getting the balance right for a kids game is quite difficult, because you can't make it too complex, and you get to, keep it interesting as well, but not making it too easy.
You probably don't want to dumb it down. I imagine. I know my kids. Yeah, my kids. The games are too easy. They don't like them either. So I guess it's kind of a catch-20.
Yeah, the actual game I made, Apples and Mud, came from my daughter asking, "Oh, can you make a game about ponies?" And I was like, "Okay." And I thought, right, let's not do ponies, let's do horses, and we do like a horse racing game. So I played. My daughter's only 5, so I played a ton of the horrible kids games with the most basic. You roll and move, and it's the most boring game ever. But obviously, kids at 4 years old love them. So I thought, right, let's get a game like that, but make it more strategic. So, a child who's 5 or 6 years old can think about what they're doing rather than just rolling and moving. You're not really thinking about it. So that's how that kind of idea came about. And I play tested it several times with my daughter. There's also a guy down the road who he's got young kids play tested it as well. And it was about saying, right, well, we're racing around the track. Let's do 3 tracks instead of just the one, because then you can chop and change track, and each track is different. So one track's longer than the other, and there's icons on each track as well. And depending on what track you use, Okay, so you try the shorter track. It's a lot tougher because the icons might not be as kind. So it's giving kids a bit of an option and choice rather than just having the one track and going around the one. It gives a bit of more strategic thinking around, right, I choose that and choose this. Because if I go on that track, I can pick up more cards. And if I pick up more cards, I can get more victory points. Or if I go on this track, I can get round quicker, but I get less cards, but I might get more carrots to pick up, and that gives me more options. So that's kind of how that game came about and kind of evolved through all the play testing as well.
Well, that sounds really cool. Is that the one you sent off to Habba? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's been sent off to Habba. There was also I can't remember the Mayfair games. I think were interested. So I kind of sent it off, and yeah, whether they want to publish it or not is another thing. And the problem with kids games is they don't do well on Kickstarter. They're not type it, you can't really stick it in Kickstarter because it probably fail. It's you're better off just sending those off to a publisher who specialises in children's games, and just see whether they'd be interested in actually getting it on the market. The design I did for it, somebody had originally did one of the designs for one of the tracks, and I did the other design, and actually did it on Microsoft Word, which surprises a lot of people because they look at it and think, you seriously did this on Microsoft Word? Because the actual design was pretty good, because then it was done in a Word document. So yeah, I did. There's two different tracks, and yeah, I just pulled it all together, and I did the actual original game in about half a day, and the actual progress and development took a few months because I've made a few tweaks and changes for play testing. So whether I hear back from Habba about whether they want to publish it or not, I don't know. But publishers can take months before they get back to you anyway because it gets flooded with game requests.
Yeah, I was about to ask about that because my wife, Lady Leaf, she was into publishing and sent off to a bunch of agents and whatnot, and it takes forever. And then with the traditional publishing of books, it takes forever. They put a book out there and then you don't hear about it they don't publish it for like a year or something. Is that how it works in traditional publishing of games too? Do you know?
It can do. It depends on the company itself. So what I usually found is the smaller ones got back to you really quickly, and they would say no, I'm not interested, or I am interested. So when I sent the political board game, the original one that my dad had made, obviously he didn't have any success, and I thought, well, I know a lot of publishers, I'll send them off, and they all came back with exactly the same feedback he got, and I got the feedback within a week saying, no, we're not interested. It's not the type of game we would publish. Well, and with the larger ones, they tend to get a lot more requests as well in terms of people want to publish the games, etc. So what you'll find is the larger they are, they kind of slower the feedback is. That's what I found. The smaller ones, I tend to get feedback quite quickly because there's usually one person in the room, getting a few requests or ideas, game ideas sent to them, and they'll tend to get back to you fairly quickly. Whereas the larger ones get absolutely bombarded, with game requests and kind of ideas and people want to publish their games, etc. You've also kind of got to think about whether your game's right for that publisher as well, and that's a pitfall a lot of people do. They tend to just send the game off and hope that they'll publish it. It doesn't work like that. You've usually got to put a sell sheet together, a how to play video. So for example, Mayfair came back and said, before we look at your game, we want to have a sell sheet and a how to play video. But you've got to research the publishers in terms of would they actually publish your type of game, and you've got to look at the games that they're already releasing in terms of how they work and what type of age range the games are directed at. So you've got to do that before you send the games off to publishers. Otherwise, you're just wasting their time and your own time.
That makes sense. Like you don't want to send a big miniature game off to Habba or a kid's game off to like Cool Mini or not, something like that probably.
Yeah, and you've got to look. One thing I've noticed is to always ask how long does it take, and if usually it takes more than 60 minutes. Go, no, they're not interested. So you've got to be careful. You've got to look at the games they're releasing. How long do they take to play? Because there's very few publishers that tend to go over an hour and a half of gameplay. They don't like it because you look at the market, and those who play for games I'm going to stereotype a bit here, play for more than an hour and a half tend to be hardcore gamers, whereas those who tend to play games in a more social kind of setting or just as a hobby and not so in depth as serious as some other hardcore gamers is, they like the game to be under an hour and a half. So you'll find a lot of publishers like to kind of meet that kind of range of how long a game takes to play. They don't tend to, you don't find many that are more than an hour and a half long to play. So if you go on Amazon and look at all the board games that are listed, if you compare the ones that take under an hour and a half to the ones that are over an hour and a half, there's far more in that first category than in the second category. So yeah, it's really important to think about that as well, how long the game takes to play, because that's a massive factor in sending it off to a publisher.
And you talked to the sell sheet. I remember on one of my Facebook groups, somebody was asking what that is. What exactly is a sell sheet?
So a sell sheet's just a snapshot of your game. So I have a couple of graphics, i.e. what the game's about, a tiny little background about it, how it plays. You might want to put a couple of the mechanics in, how the actual game functions in general. So you're not going in depth. It's almost like an A5 sheet of paper with graphically designed in terms of the layouts. It looks quite smart and professional. You don't want it tacky. You want to have look at maybe a list of the components. What the components are, because that's important. The one thing a lot of people miss out is the components. A publisher wants to know the components because of the cost. And if a game's got an absolutely huge list of components, it's going to cost money. So put the list to make the contents, or what's going to be in the box. You may want to put a couple of pictures looking at the actual game itself, or the board, the graphics. You want to put a bit of information about the game itself and how it's going to play out, and you want to be quite brief and concise with that. You don't want to waffle on. Straight to the point. This is how the game works. This is how it plays out. Here's a couple of pictures of how it looks. Here's the components of the game. Your contact information. If you've got a how to play video, it's useful to stick that on so they can actually go to that link and then look at the game and how it plays. That's extremely important. A lot of people miss that out. They don't realise that reading something on a piece of paper or a card or a flyer, it's different to actually watching a video of how something plays out.
Well, they're probably like me. I know I hate to read the instructions. I'd much rather go watch a video on how to play it than have to sit through and try to drudge through a book.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I hate reading real books. I hate reading in general. So if I had the choice between reading a book or watching a film, any time of the day. And it's same with a rule book. I get a new game and I think, do you know what, I cannot be bothered reading the rules. So what I tend to do is I will watch a how to play video first. And then once I've got the grasped idea of the gameplay, I'll look at the rule book because my understanding is a lot better. What I tend to find is, and when I'm reading the rule book, you tend to find that sometimes it's not self-explanatory when they're trying to explain the game mechanics, so you can misinterpret things. So if I haven't gone away and looked at how to play a video, I can sometimes get a bit muddled thinking, now I'm now confused, do I do this and do I do that, or do I do this? So yeah, I much prefer to look at a video, and it just gives you a much better idea whether you like the game or not, especially when you think about buying a game. I always go on and look at a how to play video because I think, right, do I like the look of that, or do I like how the game mechanics work? Do I kind of want to back this in Kickstarter? So I want to kind of, when I'm looking at Kickstarter, I kind of think, right, I want to see a how to play video because I want to see whether I'm going to back this or not.
Yeah, that's for sure. So when you're creating your own game, do you pick your own artist or do you do your own artwork? I guess it just depends on the creator, but what would be your suggestions on how to find an artist?
What I suggest is, try and do your first initial prototypes yourself, because you kind of need to kind of learn how and get an understanding of how you want the game to look. Because what I found is when you contact game designers, they'll ask you, do you have an example you can show me? So you kind of want to have something. You don't want to go blind and go, no, I haven't got an idea. I've got in my head, but it's a lot harder to kind of explain how the design would look, when you're trying to, explain it in text. So it's better just to go away and try and do a design yourself initially for the first play testing phases. because you don't want to waste money and going to a game designer unless you're for sure that's going to be a game you're going to be selling, getting released, or going on Kickstarter. So I tend to use, for example, Microsoft Word. I do my designs in that because it's simple. It takes forever, but it's simple. I know a lot of people use Photoshop. That's quite common to use that. I don't know. I'm not a designer, so I haven't got a clue how to use Photoshop. Publisher's good if you can learn to use Publisher. That does pretty much anything you'd want it to do in terms of getting a decent design. But again, you know, I'm not familiar with Publisher, so I really haven't got the time to be sitting learning that program. So I just use Word, and it does me fine. I can just go on Google, get some images, drag it on. I can just kind of manipulate the images a little bit in Word. I can remove backgrounds, so I can do what I want to do in Microsoft Word and just print it off in A3, and then that's what I tend to do and do a simple playtesting. So I'd recommend doing that. Try and do it yourself. Don't waste money and getting a designer for the first initial stages, because you'll just be wasting money. You don't know how your game's going to work in the end. You could be going through multiple changes, and it could be a completely different game by the end process. So in terms of finding a game designer, if you've got your game at the final stages, you're not either going to go on Kickstarter or you're going to get through a publisher. Although a lot of publishers might use their own designers. That's something to bear in mind. So again, not worth paying for a game designer to design something if they're going to use their own. So, and if you're looking to find one, there's a few ways. Facebook is a great way of finding game designers. I've put a list up on one of my blogs as well. I can't remember which one it is, but there's a link to a list of game designers. These are all recommended. Board Game Geek's a great place to find game designers. There's a thread actually on Board Game Geek where you can click on there and put a request in, and you'll find a couple of really good game designers. And I actually found one, Jeff Brown, who's initially going to design Destruction for me, but circumstances changed. I couldn't afford that. It was quite expensive, and I had to kind of look at other means. But there's a few places you can find game designers, and you need to look at the games they've designed as well, so you can figure out whether you actually like those types of designs. You've got artists and you've got game design, graphic designers. You've got two different types of designers that do come with totally different outlooks. So it's important to do a bit of research and have a look, and you'll get recommendations on Board Game Geek. But I find Facebook really good. And personally, I found it a lot better than Board Game Geek and finding a game designer. Although I did, initially find Jeff Brown on Board Game Geek. He does some amazing designs. But it's just about finding them, interacting with them, and letting them know your ideas, and looking at whether they've got some scope and time scale to fit you in, and getting a quote. They should give you a very detailed quote, and that's one thing you want to be careful of, as well as revisions. So when you're getting a quote from a game designer, you want to make sure that it details every single thing that you're designing in your game, and whether you want them to do the graphic designs as well to implement into your rule book to make that look professional, and also revisions. So you want to outline how many revisions as well in the quote, so it's very clear, because what you don't want is you find, I need you to do this as well, and this, and a few more revisions. It's not included in the quote, because that could sting you even more money. So you have to be careful.
What's that mean, the court? Is that like what you're paying for, or what is the court?
Well, a quote, I'll outline, for example, every single element. It should, a good graphic designer will come in with a quote. They'll outline exactly how much the cards design costs, the actual design of the tokens, the box, the game book, the other components, the actual board itself, or the tiles, whatever you're using. So they should list every single little thing they're actually doing designs for, and there should be a price next to each one, so you can see in detail the individual prices, as well as the total price for the whole entire game design.
Okay, so it's like an itemized list of everything that you're paying for and everything they're going to do.
Yeah, they should send you that. That's rather than just a ballpark figure, because you don't know what incorporates in that ballpark figure. So you want to be very clear, because it's a contract initially legally. if you're agreeing to someone, whether it's, kind of in writing or not, or, and you've got that confirmation of, yeah, I like that quote, or I agree, that's a good price. That's a legal confirmation. That's a contract agreement then. So you want to be very clear in the itemised listing that what you're paying for is what you're
Okay, and
getting.
going back to the TV show thing, or making a game off of a TV show. Do you know how somebody would go about making a game, getting the rights to work with an established IP, like maybe like the children's television show you see, or different things?
Yeah, so you obviously need a license, obviously, for that. Licenses can be very, very expensive. And usually what happens is the time scale is so tight, and it's no different when I worked in the music industry. You would create, tracks for films, and the time scale you got was so ridiculously tight. You wouldn't be sleeping because you'd constantly be writing song after song after song to meet the deadlines. So I might come and say, "Oh, we nearly finished the film now. We've got a week. Can you do 20 tracks in a week?" And you're thinking, "Hang on a minute. It takes me about 2 months to do one track, and you want me to do 20 in a week." So it's kind of a bit like that, where you approach, a TV series or the company who's made that film or TV program, and you would speak to them about a license. They will come out with a price. They should give you a price for the license. Okay, and they'll come some certain elements within the contract agreement. So what it will state is, for example, say it must include this and it must not include that. And if the game involves actual the actors or actresses, they have to get permission from those actors and actresses before you can implement them into the game as well. So again, you they usually outline that anyway, and that's the kind of drawback in the process. The time scale of the company getting the authorization and the okay from the actor or actress can take a long time. You could be waiting weeks and even months for them just to give, yeah, that's okay to put that in the game, or yes, I'm quite happy for that. But it's expensive. The licenses are really expensive. Um, and what will usually happen is when you've kind of got the okay, they'll kind of give you a time frame, or can you get this done by X amount of time, and it's usually quite tight. So you've kind of got to be you've got to be careful and be ready to kind of get a game made, and within a tight time frame. Because what will happen is you can, from your first contact to getting the okay to make the game, it could be months. It could even be 12 months by the time you get the okay. And then you get the okay, they can say, right, we want it done within 2 months. And then you've got a ridiculously short time. You might get longer. It depends on on the time frames, but it's quite tight. What you'll find is a lot of there's not a lot, but quite a few will design the game before they've been given okay, because they can turn around and say no, we're not granting the license. So you kind of want to wait until you've got the license before you start designing, because you're just wasting your time. Because they can turn around easily and say no, we're not granting the license, and you have to be prepared as well for delays, because when it involves the kind of actors and actresses, they kind of, especially if they're involved in the kind of gameplay, etc. There'll be delays. There's no doubt about that. You'll be waiting weeks and months before they even get back to you, especially when it becomes, the bigger the actors and actresses, because they've got a busy life. They need to respond to the requests of how you want the game to work, and they need to give the okay. I pe- I personally like to stay clear of that route because of cost involved, the amount of money you have to fork out for a license, it's thousands. And obviously the bigger the films, so Star Wars for example, the license for that is not going to be cheap. It can be to the ridiculous of over 100,000 for a license for big large films. And there's a reason for that. It's because you're more likely to sell the games, for a big movie. But yeah, you need to pay upfront costs for a license, and a lot of people don't have thousands of pounds sitting in a bank account to pay that. So what you usually find is those who have released games based on films, for example, or TV programs, have already had quite a few game releases and have done quite well off that. So therefore, they've managed to save a bit of money in order to pay for the license. Or they've been lucky enough to have saved up some money or had money some other way to afford the license because it can be pricey.
Okay, yeah, well, and so do you do this full time? Or do you do this on the side on your spare time, or?
Yeah, I have a full-time job, and I always learned, even when I used to produce music and I've got a few tracks released, I always got told never give up your day job because obviously doing something like board game design and music production, or even in film, can you don't know when that's going to dry up, and it's not a regular income as well. So you've got to be careful. So no, and I've got a family to support as well. So I've never give up my day job, and I kind of I like my job. So yeah, I've got a full time job, and I do my board game design on the side. Um, I've got more ideas than I've got time to make my board games, and
It sure sounds like yeah, it sounds like you got a lot of ideas going on.
so yeah, it's quite time consuming. So it can take me months to kind of finish a game because I'm doing it in my spare time. And I spend quite a lot of time with my kids. So I tend to you'd be lucky if I got 15 hours a week to work on a board game because I'm just so busy. I go to a lot of board gaming events as well every week, group meetups. So I'm quite a got quite a busy schedule. But yeah, I try to spend as much time on it as I can. Um, and I've got this book. I've got a book with me. I take it with me, so I've got ideas. I write the ideas on my little pad. I don't. I find that doing it on your phone doesn't work. I just find the old school way of just writing pen and paper works much better. It's much quicker. And I write on my. And I can. The good thing about it is I can just go back. I'll leave it for months, and then I'll go back to the book, and then I'll you kind of look at it and think, no, that's a stupid idea. I'll get rid of that, and I'll add that in, and I can progress it nice and slowly that way.
Okay, cool. And then let's see here. The next section we do on our podcast, it's called Adventures in Application Acquisition. Do you have any favorite applications you play, whether they're tied to board games or not? Any cool apps you like?
Um, I oh, I don't tend to use any apps to do board gaming. Um, I'm quite I'm quite an old school kind of guy, even though I'm quite young. I like to kind of the apps I use. If I look at my phone now, that all the apps I've got are based on traveling because I like to travel. That's about.
Well, there you go. Tell us about a traveling app. What's your favorite one?
Oh, I would say I've got a favourite. I've got about 15 travel apps. So if I'm out with my daughter, I'll kind of ping a few up. So I might use TripAdvisor, or I might if I want to find somewhere to stay. I've got quite a few. Kind of Booking.com, for example. I've got this cool app called Pin Drop. So say I find somewhere quite cool, and I think, oh, I've discovered this cool beach. I want to go back to it. I've got an app called Pin Drop, and I could just add a pin in to the location, and it's a bit like a reminder, and I can just write in whatever, and then that'll keep it there, for life, and then I can just go back to it and remind myself. Oh, I found a good coffee somewhere, a good coffee shop or a tea shop. I'll just pin it, because I can't remember everything, so that's one really cool app. Um, uh,
Sorry, it's called Pin Drop. Is that what you said?
yeah, pin drop, and it's just even if if you find a kind of a board game and kind of group up meet and you've never been there before, you can just stick a pin in and it'll you'll be a good kind of reminder. Um, but I use nothing in terms of board gaming. I suppose I'm a bit kind of old school where I like to keep my phone for personal stuff and my daughter mostly. So I've got apps for my daughter. She kind of little games she has plays on. But yeah, I tend to kind of the board game side of things. I kind of keep that on the computer and the laptop because I like to concentrate on when I'm on my laptop. It's just keep that as my board game, and and I don't distract myself when I'm on my phone to do a board game, and I keep it for I use it quite a lot, and for that, and for my daughter.
Okay, cool, cool. Let's see here. That's great. Let's see here. Yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of the show. We really appreciate you coming on. Do you have any release plans on any of these games, or we're just waiting to hear back from publishers, or what are your plans going forward?
Destruction. I'm gonna look for next year. I was toiling before. Kind of, do I want to go on Kickstarter or do I want to send it to a publisher? And I was speaking to John, who I'm co-designing this other board game with. I was thinking it might be a good idea to maybe stick it, on Kickstarter. But the risk is if I've not had something released beforehand, it's a bit a bit tricky and risky. So it might be better just to stick it with it, give it to a publisher and just see whether they want to publish it. So I've not decided 100% what I'm going to do with Destruction, but I might do something next year, try and get out there, whether it's through Kickstarter or send it to a publisher. But Apples and Mud, I'm hoping that a publisher, I'll kind of look at that and think, yeah, we'll get that out there. So I'm looking to get that out in the shops if I can, but we'll see how that goes. It depends whether the publisher want to publish it or not. But yeah, in terms of, there's another game, a political game called Scandal, and I want to do something with that quite quickly. So I want to get that finished and do quite a few play tests with it. And there's a playtesting group I go to once a month. I take my games down there, and they're really great. They've released quite a few games between themselves, so it's good to get feedback. So yeah, Apples and Mother, I suspect that might come out before Destruction, considering I've already sent the game off to a couple of publishers. So that might be the first one out, and then it'll probably be Destruction, and then hopefully Scandal, or the game that myself and John are working on might come out before Destruction, depending on how the progress of that comes on.
Well, we'll hope the best for you. And just a reminder to everybody, like I know I have a really bad memory, and we may not have that pin it drop the pin app that you said. Where do we find you again on what was your website or your blog again?
If people just Google Pixie Games UK, there is another Pixie Games to do with video games, nothing to do with me. It might pop up before mine, but I think a couple down you'll see Pixie Games UK. And if you, it's PIXY Games UK, and yeah, if you go to the site, it'll be revamped soon, and there's a link there to the blog. If you click on that, it'll take you straight to Blogger, but it'll probably pop up in Google search anyway. It's pretty amazing. Everything pops up there, so you'll probably see it in the list of of Pixie Games blogs. It'll probably be there somewhere, and you just click on it, and there's tons of resources there. You'll find tons of kind of links as well to certain places. I've had quite a lot of good feedback in terms of how the blog's written. Not the best with grammar, but in terms of the content, you'll find a lot of useful resources in there.
Well, that's cool. We'll have to look there. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, Jay. We'll go ahead and let you know when this releases, and so you can get it out to people. Any final parting words for the gaming community on the podcast, Getting Geeky with Game Relief?
Oh, do you know what? One thing I will say is, how amazing the industry is, and one thing I've noticed, which I think is amazing, is 99% of people want others to do well, and that's because no one wants to play a rubbish game. They want to play really good games, and the encouragement you get and people wanting you to do well is amazing. And the kind of support I've had from some people, especially in Game Makers Lab and on Facebook, has been brilliant, helping out with my rulebook. And there's a couple other people as well. Have helped out with game designs for me in terms of the graphics, and they've been amazing as well. So yeah, it's a fantastic community to be in, and it's very positive as well. It's one of the best communities you'll get involved in.
Well, that's cool. Well, we'll look forward to games. So I imagine they would have your name on them too, wouldn't they? If they come out, it'll say developed or designed by Jay Sears.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and yeah, probably a few other people as well that have helped out, depending on who it is. But yeah, my name's definitely, yeah, I'll definitely have my name in there, because like anyone, you kind of create something, even with my music, you want your name on there, and you kind of want to be proud of what you've created.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Jay, for coming on Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf.
No, thanks for having me on. It's been fab. It's been great to kind of share maybe a different perspective on things as well in terms of game design, how I do it. So no, it's been brilliant. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thank you.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.